Yo, what's going on, guys? So, have you ever been curious about the fragrances from Ex Nihilo? More specifically, that some of them come as originals and many of them have extrait versions of them. And so, if you're new to that house and you don't know much about their fragrances and you haven't tried a plethora of their fragrances, which they have many, it might be hard to kind of navigate whether or not you should get an extrait version because different houses do different things with their extraits. Now, typically, you would assume you're just increasing the oil concentration for the sake of performance and maybe a slight different iteration or roundness or shaping of the existing fragrance composition. But we know now that sometimes companies will add additional elements to a fragrance or remove certain notes from a fragrance in addition to just increasing the concentration. And then with things like ISOE Super and eccentric molecule type stuff and all that. What's really going on from an OG into an extrait, but more specifically with the House of Ex Nihilo, because their fragrances are very unique in composition in terms of how they sit on skin. Wow, was that a mouthful? So we're going to talk about a fragrance from that house and do a comparison between the Hedonist and the Hedonist Extrait. Strap up.
Okay. I watch that head move side to side as I let this in into the room. You are on time, let's connect minds. Trying to get into a mood. We gon' be fine. Close up the blinds, no rush. Finish the food.
All right, welcome to the Scent Bubble. I'm your host for the night. Listen, guys. Okay, so I don't want to. That was a crazy intro. That was long-winded. We're not going to go back. I do everything on the spot because I want to give you guys authenticity with a review, and I don't want to script it at all. But let me kind of summarize in bite-sized info what we're going to do. So I have a lot of experience, I feel, above average experience with the House of Ex Nihilo. Just recently, a couple months ago, I went out to LA and I met the head of the storefront, the only American storefront that they have, which is located in Hollywood. And I met a wonderful lady who gave me and some of my friends a private tour of the entire boutique, as well as the line, walked me through all the fragrances, and just gave us an incredible world-class experience. And I have nothing but the highest amount of respect and appreciation for houses that have real authentic storefronts that look different than your typical retail experience. It was truly special. No, that's not going to impact the way that I talk about these fragrances today. It's going to inform my conversation with you guys because I look at it like this. Maybe most of you haven't been into this boutique or smelled a ton of Ex Nihilo fragrances. Maybe you're just familiar with Hedonist and Blue Talisman and Patchouli Memory and Gold Immortals and, you know, some of the more flagship fragrances. But you don't know how the whole house approaches making their perfumery. And so there's some general information that I've learned that I want to help inform your decision specifically today between the Hedonist OG and the Hedonist Extrait. Now, while I was there at the boutique, I was able to try many fragrances. So I am very familiar with how their juices feel as a weight, the longevity. And what's unique about Ex Nihilo is they certainly have certain fragrances that are more robust feeling in the air in terms of the projection, but generally speaking across the board, a lot of Ex Nihilo fragrances, what I call tap dance on skin. Now, what I mean by that is that they're robust enough to be felt and experienced and have a projection that is noticeable and head turning. However, there's not a huge weight to them in the air in a lot of cases. And so they just kind of glide on skin and float on skin. It's a very light feeling wear, though I feel like their fragrances still are robust enough to whisper, but not necessarily scream. And so when you're looking at a fragrance, for example, the Hedonist, probably what you're asking is Is the Extrait version the same thing with more performance, more projection, or is things changing? Now, for instance, I have information about the Talisman fragrance to where I know firsthand that sometimes notes get added and removed with the House of Ex Nihilo. So I'm going to wear both fragrances today and let you know not necessarily projection or not necessarily longevity, because we'll have to leave that up to the people and things like Fragrantica, which will vote on them. Naturally, I've rarely ever been in a situation where an Extrait has less longevity than an OG. But what I mainly want to tell you is how they smell in the air and how they sit and transition onto skin, to let you know if I just feel like the concentration's getting heavier or if it actually smells different. So let's go ahead and grab Hedonist Extrait. I'm going to have 2 test strips here. And for those of you guys who are new to my channel, I am long-winded in a very consolidated way, if you could believe that exists. But I really care about giving you guys as much information as possible. I think today, a lot of fragrance content is just a parrot of a parrot of a parrot of a parrot. It's a giant echo chamber. And I create my channel content as if when you come to my channel, you can make a really good decision after you watch one of my reviews because they're thorough. So yeah, it might be a few minutes longer, but the payoff of that is you don't have to go around and surf 5 to 10 videos on the same fragrance just to get all the information you need. So here we go. Hedonist Extrait. We're going to go 3 sprays on the test strip here. We'll go 2 on wrist. Make it juicy. Smells beautiful in the air, but we're going to ignore that for now. And let's go Hedonist OG. Make sure I have the right one. These are really cool sample boxes, by the way. They pop out this little foam brick. Yes, Hedonist Eau de Parfum concentration. And we're going to go 2 on wrist. Did a little bit more, but that's okay. And 3 on the test strip. I'm going to let those settle a little bit. I want to talk about the beauty of this house because, again, their fragrances don't scream in a lot of cases. They whisper loudly is how I would describe it. That's my experience with these fragrances. There's a gentleness, a confidence in the composition where it will speak to you. You just need to shut up and listen. It's not one of those fragrances like a Bleu de Chanel or something where it's just out there and you could fully get it all in a few seconds. And I like that because it gives you a little bit of nose journey, and also depending on the angle of the individual wearing the fragrance, you pass them by, you interact with them and stuff, you get to appreciate different pockets of their perfumery. The raw materials are absolutely pristine. There's so much customization and care that goes into that house. And I believe they have over 10 perfumers there that work on individual compositions and stuff like that. And they don't really cross-pollinate. So they have over 10 individuals that get their own creative spin on all the fragrances, which is quite amazing because you would think there wouldn't be harmony with 10 plus individuals in the kitchen. But it's amazing how Ex Nihilo fragrances, I feel like after 20 or 30 tries of, I've gone through a lot of their fragrances, I feel like there's a beautiful harmony in the weight and the quality between each of their fragrances where I feel like I can spot them a mile away, no matter if it's an oriental woody or an exotic aquatic type fragrance, etc. Okay. With that being said, let's jump into this house. And by the way, if you're ever in LA, please check out the boutique. Vanouche is, and that's her name, she's quite incredible, very knowledgeable, a very skilled individual in this space, but also a very loving and caring person. She's got a heart of gold, and you will feel that when you're in there. And that makes all the difference in your fragrance shopping experience, because you guys know when you go into a Saks or a Neiman's or a Bloomingdale's, it is just pressure city in a way that really messes with your ability to navigate and smell what you want to smell and buy what you want to buy. Okay. So I'm going to start off actually over here with the Eau de Parfum concentration, the OG, and let's see what we smell. A beautiful, almost has a textural component of like a champagne type of sparkling top. It's got a very nice earthy base of what feels like it's got like a, it feels like it has like a nice earthy woody base, kind of this slight spicy green element to it. There's some kind of complexity in the background that I'm not quite picking up what it actually is. But it's got this fresh, almost soapy, almost champagne-esque, woody, green, spicy type of feel. It is slightly sweet, maybe like a 3 or a 4 out of 10 sweet. So it, to me, that's like prime time for being a masculine fragrance. Now, for those of you who don't know, all Ex Nihilo fragrances are unisex. However, when you go to the boutique, they do have some sort of separation where it's like these are unisex masculine leaning, unisex feminine leaning, and then kind of just perfectly unisex in the middle. And check out our video that we did. If you just type Ex Nihilo in the search on my videos, you can see pictures of us touring the boutique, and Venush is there as well, and just the whole experience. It's really a one-of-one experience I recommend everybody check out. But yeah, this is beautiful. This is like a very like aromatic, soft, earthy, woody, slight spicy green. It almost feels like the tiniest bit of the freshest touch of like a Initio's Oud for Greatness, kind of like fresh oud slice in there, you know, maybe some agarwood or something. And then the Drydown on skin is just a really nice, rich, earthy, fresh, slightly spicy composition. It's even almost has like a soily element to it, like a fresh soil, very airy, crisp, clean. The aromatics on it are absolutely beautiful. This is in the realm of like a Tom Ford oud wood, slight elements sometimes of like a Ganymede in the lightest way possible. Way more beautiful, way more mass appealing than something like Ganymede. Yeah, quite beautiful. Let me just real quick switch screens so you guys can see the note breakdown on this. Obviously, it got a 4.1 out of 5. So people are very familiar with this fragrance, and it is creeping into mass appeal territory. Top notes: bergamot and ginger, Akigalawood, cedar in the mid, and vetiver, tonka bean, and musk in the base. I love how simplistic this note breakdown is, because you can tell what's really giving when you can have such a limited note profile but have such big, robust smells. What you're dealing with is just elite raw materials. And when you're dealing with elite raw materials, different notes have so much personality with them. You don't have to put a ton of things into the composition. I love this. This might seem simple or like overly masculine, but ladies, I assure you, if you wanted to get into something like this and just kind of tap into your inner citrus, earthy composition, it is quite beautiful. And there is like a gentle, gingery type of sweetness in this composition. It is light. The projection seems very 1-2 feet-ish, maybe 2 max. It seems like if you heavy spray on this, you could probably have maybe a 2-foot sillage type of thing, but the scent stays really close to you. It's a glorified skin scent, maybe +1. But it is just so nice. This is what you'd want your skin to smell like all day. Okay, now let's jump out for half a second and let's check out the extrait. So immediately I feel like the extrait is a touch sweeter. The ginger, vetiver, bergamot really push a little bit more. It's interesting because in the opening it almost felt Tigar-ish with the citrus, which I believe Tigar is like bergamot, grapefruit, and orange with vetiver in the base. This has a vetiver, bergamot, ginger base, but it's kind of doing the same thing. Imagine like a combination between Tom Ford's Oud Wood and Tigar. It's got a very like Tigar light, fresh top with the earthy oudiness of Tom Ford's Oud Wood. So it's this very clean, clean and pristine, upscale, not snobbish, but upscale, earthy scent with a citric, beautiful kind of champagne citric top to it. And that top pops out more on this test strip. Let's check skin. So there's certainly more air to the Eau de Parfum versus the Extrait. The Extrait feels a little sweeter, a little more citric. We're almost splitting hairs. Like, I feel like the elevation of richness is maybe 10-15% with the Extrait. I believe they're virtually the same price. So out the gate, I don't think you make a bad decision getting either or, because some people like a very airy, glorified skin scent that's rich and beautiful, but more so a scent where you have to come into somebody's presence to experience it. And they like stuff to feel more natural and angelic. And for that reason, I think the Eau de Parfum makes all the sense in the world. If you're the type of person that likes to pee on a tree, so to speak, where you like to kind of leave your trail as you go places and leave a little bit more in the air behind you, the Extrait, I feel, might add an extra foot to your projection. I don't know if that really impacts longevity because, again, the scent profile is so close to one another. It's really just a weight difference and a vibrancy difference by about 15%. I'd imagine an Extrait would feel a lot more robust than this, but it's really just a subtle upgrade to be a little bit juicier and a little bit more radiant. But it still has that light, clean, airy, slight sweet from citrus and ginger type of feel. Same composition, I feel. But let's go ahead and switch screens real quick to see if they actually changed anything. So here's the Extrait. And surprisingly, so don't be deceived by this. So it got a 4.4 rating out of 5, which is a much higher score into mass appeal territory, right? And it even says here, is grapefruit added? Interesting. Okay. So it got a 4.4 out of 5, but it's only 355 votes. Here we have 4.1, but it's out of a little over double the amount of vote volume. So that little 0.3% change is just based off the fact that more people own the other one than this one. I think on an average level, they're not much, one's not more favored than the other, so to speak. But it is interesting to see this. As I told you, it was sweeter. It's a little richer on the citric top. And this makes all the sense in the world because now they've added ginger. However, grapefruit. Though I will say, the original still feels grapefruitish. That's why I said it leaned in the Tigar direction. The lychee, it does have a nice, gentle kind of champagne sweet top. Almost has like a strawberry light feel or like a strawberry jam in the tiniest way possible, just in the top. That amberwood in the bottom and patchouli added, I believe. Yeah. So the patchouli is just adding, again, everything is pushing, right? So the grapefruit is pushing further that kind of tart citric flavor and sweetening it by a little bit more. But in my eyes, on this note palette, grapefruit essentially is ginger and bergamot together in terms of the feel it gives off. So this is just doubling down on that. The lychee, just providing some more sweetness, and then the amberwood warming it all up so that it radiates a little bit more off skin. The patchouli, to me, you know, it's doing something, you know, but it's not sticking out. I don't get like, I would have already assumed that patchouli is in both in terms of how they smell. Okay. I think I've given you guys enough information, so let's go ahead and give you guys some of my final thoughts. Only about a 15% change between the two DNAs, and I don't get a change in actual notes. I just get a change in the fact that one is airy and one is a little bit more ambery and radiant and slightly sweeter and slightly more citric. But again, I feel like the upgrade is like 15%. Now, again, here's what you got to ask yourself. If you're a fan of Tigar, right, or oud wood, and but you don't like how rich and just like Tigar is very like, it has the same vibrancy as fragrances like LV, you know, Pacific Chill, Afternoon Swim, Imagination, L'Immensité. It just has that radiant, rich, juicy, fruity, fleshy kind of front blast. And it's not really sitting on a ton of earthy base. Whereas Hedonist kind of flips the composition on its head and says, no, we want just as much rich earthiness coming through as citrus. And so the citrus is dialed way back. So that's why I called it Tigar Light. But it's not just Tigar Light, because that base that gets ramped up, the patchouli, the tonka bean, the vetiver, really gives a lot of character profile to the citrus and ginger profile, to where I feel it's just more about the earthiness than it is the citrus and tart that Tigar has. And so really it's like a preference war. Like if you prefer, a lot of people do prefer a kind of juicy imagination, fruit blast, and Elysium, grapefruity, ambery blast, and they want that to radiate and sing. And depending on where you live, that might be appropriate. But if you're looking for something that feels a little more mature, not old person feeling, but just not, sometimes leading in citrus or sweetness can feel like you're cheating, because you're kind of doing something everybody is doing. And because of that, you lose character, you lose depth, you lose meaning, but you're accomplishing your goal of radiating and popping off of everybody's radar. So I feel like this is for somebody who is into that profile, but just has a million fragrances that are just juicy citrus blasted in your face and want to have more educated, slight nose in the air complexity that relies on other complexity aside from just leading with a grapefruit note or some type of citrus. And this whispers to you all day. It's a very pleasant smell. I love it. I feel like it consolidates like 3 different fragrances. And now let's get into the final nuts and bolts. There's like a fly in my room. That's crazy. Choosing between Hedonist and Hedonist Extrait. Oh, I tried to kill it. If you want a more Tigar juiciness, you go with the Extrait. I don't feel like performance changes much. They say the Extrait is very long lasting, but it is more moderate to strong in its sillage. And with the OG, the votes are that it's more moderate than strong and long lasting. So I don't feel like it's substantial though. Like I feel like the longevity here, you might get an extra hour or 2 at most. And again, this is why I go off of the votes, because my opinion means nothing. I don't know your hygiene. I don't know your skin. If it sucks up a fragrance, I don't know how much climate's going to be affecting you. So we need to speak in generality here. And so I think the voting system on Fragrantica is somewhat more substantial. So they're going to give you an extra hour or 2 between the regular and the Extrait. But as far as style of fragrance, if you want the juicier Tigar, Elysium, L'Immensité type of feel where it's leaning more on the citrus with a backbone of earthiness by about 60-40 lean, you'll go with Extrait. But you won't go with one or the other just for the performance. If you want the more light oud woody, airy feel with the same composition where the earthiness is just as important as the citrus, and you're wanting to lean into more of that other than citrus complexity, then you go with the original. I don't think you lose with either or. Do you prioritize citrus over earthiness? Do you prioritize projection and longevity over scent? Do you prioritize complexities other than the citrus and stuff like that? What's your shtick? You know what I'm saying? What are you into? Both of them are great fragrances, and I think both will easily last you more than about 6 hours, you know? But these are more gentle scents. Like even the Extrait in its robustness still feels like it's not beast mode. Like on a beast mode scale, I would call Extrait probably like a 6 or 7, and I would call the OG like a 4 or 5, or it's just a solid 5, like just straight moderate. Like for sure 6, depending on your hygiene, you can push it. And here's the beauty, right? I think you should pick the best scent profile that you would go with based off my review, not the longevity, because you can always add your own ISO-E Super. You can use Molecule 1. Shoot, you could use a designer like a 90 Pure White from Banana Republic. You can use CK Everyone. You can use obviously Eccentric Molecules. Some houses sell ISO-E Super as just a composition. What is the other one I always recommend? There's just a lot you can do. I mean, lotions, oils. There's a lot you can do to push the fragrance longer, guys. So anyways, that was my review between Hedonist and Hedonist Extrait from Ex Nihilo. I give both of them great scores. Like, they're both, to me, solid 9s. As far as the perfumery and composition is concerned, very well balanced, very beautiful scent profiles. They're interesting. They're unique. No one's going to really smell like you. And as far as what I would buy between the two, I personally would lean towards the OG because I prefer the earthy lean over the citric lean, because when it leans citric, I feel like you smell more like everybody else. Like, think of how many grapefruit, ginger forward fragrances you have. I mean, like I said, Elysium, Tigar, Imagination, your Dolce & Gabbana light blues and O Intenses, your Versace's. There's just so many fragrances that do that. I would want to emphasize the earthiness and just sacrifice the projection and longevity, put something on under it, and then just overspray the heck out of it, so I'm just popping just as hard as the Extrait. But that's not something you should do if you feel differently. I hope this was helpful for you. I can't believe we hit a 27-minute review, but I kind of look at it like this. If we were just reviewing one fragrance, it'd probably be a 10, 15-minute review. But since we're doing a comparison, I feel like putting an extra amount of lift on this review since we're consolidating 2 reviews into one. So let me know if you guys have tried both of these. You got to get your nose on these fragrances, because since they're more gentle, you're really going to want to have a scent profile that you're head over heels in love with. That way you don't kind of feel, I remember when I first started smelling Ex Nihilo fragrances, I felt like all of them were so light, and I kind of just had to change the frequency or the radio station in my mind to quiet down, because I'm used to such synthetic poppy stuff sometimes that you lose the art of the seductive scent trail, the art of a whispering fragrance instead of a screaming fragrance. And it took fragrances like Blue Talisman, which I now have, longer to be on my mind. It took longer for me to come around to them, because I think I was chasing projection and synthetic longevity and all that stuff, and I wasn't just slowing down and really seeing all the beauty in the quietness. And so I now find myself gravitating towards these type of scents more and just overspraying them, because the complexity that you get is just unreal compared to a fragrance where everything you get in the opening just stays that way and there's no real complexity in transition. So anyways, like, comment, and subscribe. More importantly, turn on the notification bell. I do drop episodes every single day. They call me the scientist, the professor, the scent bubble. This is what we do all day, every day. So if you're into fragrances, I'm just looking to bring you value. So hit me with that sub for free. Give the channel a week, man. See if you wind up staying a while. I know there's a ton of value here. In just 1 year, I've posted over 700 videos, and I'll probably double that this year. Don't challenge me. All right. This was Ex Nihilo, Hedonist, and Hedonist Extrait. Which one are you going to check out? Have a blessed week.